we're back. Friday AM, beautiful day here. So
gorgeous.
Yeah, we're gonna talk. What I definitely feel is the most important, and I think you agree that it's definitely one of the main qualities. But I think it's the most important thing in football and probably in general in sports. Is speed and how to develop it. We have one of the top experts in the country to talk about it today, Coach Tony Holler. It's really going to be exciting to talk to him. I've been following him for a while. He's a head track coach at Plainfield North High School in Illinois. Fantastic track and field coach. But what's really so interesting about him, to me, is his bluntness and his forwardness about how speed needs to be handled on the football field as well. And how to develop speed in general. I've watched some of his clips with his workouts with his track kids. I mean, how they turn it over and the speed that his kids have. And we had your boy on a couple of months ago, I guess now, right? From American Heritage, who's a head football coach and a track guy, and he talked a lot about how important speed was, and his teams run, I think, 39 something in the 4x1. It's what I think. If they're not, they might be second in the country to Adesida, right, from Texas. But
a couple of those Texas schools, I think. But I mean, listen, and he preached it. He preached, hey, this is football is about speed, but we can utilize the track stuff to really kind of take it to that next level. So I'm excited to talk to Coach about, like I said, we've done some research, looked at some of his stuff. Like I love it. I love what he does, his concentration on it to kind of just aid in that whole process, to kind of, up their speed and whatnot. So I'm excited.
Let's bring him on. Coach, what's going on? How's everything going, Coach Holler?
It's going great. Thank you.
Coach, pleasure. I look forward to it. I really appreciate you taking the time out to kind of talk to us and kind of get into this world a little bit.
Yeah, we're excited. So, I mean, we know about your Feed the Cats brand and everything you're doing from a speed standpoint. Just to get everybody up to speed, give us your background, your career as a coach, and really how you start to formulate everything that you're doing today.
I say that I was a coach in the making when I was born, because my dad at the time was 23 years old and in his second year of being a head basketball coach. He went on to coach for 47 years at the high school and college level, 44 of those 47 as a head coach. So he didn't just dabble in it. It was literally his life. And I decided to do the same thing after my freshman year in college. And I've been coaching now for 43. So I guess between me and my dad, we have 90 years of coaching between us. And then I have two sons who are great coaches themselves. So it's kind of a family business. And as far as Feed the Cats, I started off as a basketball coach like my dad. I was a head basketball coach for 8 years. And then I got fired in March of 1990. Back up 1 month earlier, I was hired as their head track coach 1 month before they fired me as head basketball coach. Welcome to high school sports.
Yeah, there you go.
And so I reinvented myself, and I coached old school like everybody else. I just ran the shit out of them and got them real tired and sent them home and got them tough and everything. And kids didn't love it, but we pushed through it and all that kind of stuff. When I was 40, I decided that we weren't going to run anymore, that we were going to sprint and jump. And my guys kind of looked at me like, are you sure this is smart, coach? And I said, I don't know, but I'm sick and tired of coaching guys that hate what they're doing. Right. And so it was really I really just gave in and said, I want the best athletes of my school running track and field. If we get that done, even if I poorly train them, we're going to beat other teams. I knew that to be true. What I didn't know to be true was when we started writing down sprint times, what we were doing was effective. So trying something that like no coach would even consider, not running a lap ever again, never, ever, ever running a lap in practice. And it worked.
It's very interesting because, when you think about speed and the interval workouts that coaches have done in the past, they rarely, especially at the high school level. At college is a little different, right? And at elite level, they had to evolve that mindset and in order to get elite performance, right? But in high school, you're right, 100% right that, like, you know what, just run them as much as they can, and the rise to the top kind of philosophy really applied. And with sprinters, they didn't time them. Now it's funny because with distance runners, they were doing that, right? They're doing time miles, they're doing, they're timing but they weren't timing their hundreds and their 50s and their curve runs in track and field, because they were just like, well, they're running fast. That's kind of what we're trying to do here, and just run them as much. It's so interesting that, like you took this and you ran with it, and
no pun intended.
No pun intended, right? And really developed this. So talk about how the timing, okay, in each interval in the workouts, what does that translate into as far as from a performance standpoint?
Well, I think it totally translates to performance. And old school, all sports, performance did not happen in practice. What happened in practice was effort.
Yes.
And every coach's favorite word is effort. And that's because we've been brought up in a fatigued state. Practice is really long. We're tired every day. Monday's practice, ruined Tuesday's practice. Tuesday's practice, ruined Wednesday's practice. By saying ruined, we were still human and could still put forth lots of effort. But effort is only given when you're too tired to perform. So rest, recovery, sleep is the whole basis of Feed the Cats. And then, as you said, timing. I ran on a good high school track team, a big school, set 2 school records. I went to college and ran track. Not one time as a sprinter, not one time in practice was I ever timed in a short sprint. Not once. Just think about that for a minute. We ran 10 200s. We ran ladders, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then back down. Just random BS. I mean, we basically train like middle distance runners, even though we're sprinters. And part of the reason for that is almost every head track coach was a distance coach. Right. And they ruin track and field everywhere. Are there any distance coaches that listen to this shit?
Hey, well, it's all good. This is what we do. We let it fly.
Okay. Some of my best friends are distance coaches. All right. They don't drink as good as football coaches, but I still really like these people. I just don't like the way they coach sprinters.
Right.
So what we do in a typical speed workout is we will time 3 short sprints. After we do what we call our speed drills, we don't warm up. We'll do our speed drills. Now, you may think our speed drills look like a warm up, but the intensity does not match what I think of when I think of a sloppy ass warm up that we've all been through the last 40 minutes and get us tired before practice starts. Oh my God. So we do that. We do RPR, reflexive performance reset. My good friend and business partner, Chris Corfist, is the owner. He and Cal Dietz are the owners of Reflexive Performance Reset, RPR. So we do that. And then we run 3 short sprints. If you do anything of more than 5 seconds, it may be valuable, but you're not working on speed. Anything more than 5 seconds. I heard that in the year 2002 by a guy who trained combine players for the NFL. I'll never forget that. So the 40-yard dash is a beautiful 5-second sprint. Beautiful. Half acceleration, half top speed. We do flies. I love flies. Basically, imagine a 40-yard dash where we only time the last 10. Now, that last 10 yards, we can take the number 20.45, divide it by the time, and we get miles per hour. No matter what you 2 guys could run in miles per hour, you would be motivated. Let's say you only ran 15.5. In your head, you're thinking, I can get 16. I can get 16. Now, if you're a 16, you don't make my track team. But miles per hour motivates us much more so than you ran a 1.04 10-yard.
Because I mean, you look at like some of these NFL guys, right? And it's like, oh, Tyreek Hill hit this miles per hour when he caught this, right? And now guys, so people are looking for that. They don't know how to figure it out, right? And
It's a great
sure as
match.
hell, no high school coach is saying, hey man, you just hit this many miles per hour. Like that's not happening.
Yep. Yeah, and I will. When you hear that Tyreek hits 22, I have 6 of my track guys can hit 23. Now that does not mean they're faster than Tyreek, because we're doing it in spikes on the track,
right,
with like underwear on. You know, like he's doing 12 pounds of pads.
He's doing it with an extra how much weight on his whatever with on cleats
Third
and
quarter.
grass.
Right. Yeah. He's beat up. I mean, on a soft surface, a soft surface is slow. So when he runs 22, that means if he was spiked up on my track, he'd run 25 miles an hour. 24 to 25. That's elite speed. So when you hear about track teams, guys running 22, 23, you just need to remember that. So
that's a great point. I want to stop you there, because we see this now in recruiting where kids will post what their miles per hour is in a workout. Like I hit 21 miles an hour and 21.8, and Tyreek Hill only ran 22. But your point is really valid. Tyreek Hill, and I don't know exactly what that number is, but let's say 24, 25 miles an hour, right? He's really much fast. So these guys are doing it in a workout in optimal conditions.
Correct.
And they're trying to say, hey, I should get a scholarship, when really, like you're saying, a top tier kid in spikes is running 23 plus. And so that's talk about that. I'll finish what you were saying, but I would love to hear more about it, because it's very confusing, even to me, who's been around it a long time. It's very confusing, the mile per hour stuff, exactly what that means.
Yeah, well, the only thing I'll add to what I was saying about timing sprints, a lot of people think we only time 40s and 10s. We'll do fly 40s, which is like a 30-yard run in, 40-yard fly. So we do long flies sometimes. We do a 15 into a 10, which really tests acceleration. We don't hurry the first 15 because we're not timing that. I do not like timing 10s and 15s, because I believe acceleration is rushed and you're not finishing the long and strong pushes. We want to finish long, strong pushes in our acceleration. So we don't want to time that first 10 to 15. Now in a 40 we do, but then the other thing we do is we record, rank, and publish. And Feed the Cats coaches, this changes their life, because speed is important. So when we record, rank, and publish times, motivation happens. Kids are not motivated by coaches' paragraphs, coaches' speeches, even though coaches, it's their favorite thing is to talk, right?
Right.
Kids are motivated when they see progress. We all are. Mm-hmm. So like I just did my write up from our state meet, and our kids progress by over 1 mile per hour every year. And speed grows like a tree, but if you don't water that tree, it does not grow. And coaches forever have known how to recruit speed. They just didn't know how to develop speed. So these college coaches have fast track teams. You know where they came from? They came from fast high school kids. Many college track coaches do not develop speed. They take elite speed and then work their butt off and get them in the weight room and all that stuff, and they become slightly more elite. and so with that being said, let's go back to your other question about miles per hour. Would you repeat that question for me, Coach?
So there's a lot of confusion in the space, especially like in football, right? About what miles per hour means. So like a kid will post, and Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, right? But you've seen it too, I'm pretty sure, Derek, where a kid will post, I ran 21.8 miles an hour in my high school pro day thing, when a coach has come down, or I was at 21.8 miles an hour was what Catapult had me at, right? Or something. And they're saying, then they compare it to Tyreek Hill, like you said, running 22.5 or something on a football field, like the third quarter when he breaks into the open for a touchdown, right? And they're saying, hey, they're trying to make the comparison. And what you pointed out was that, hey, like my track kids in high school with spikes are running 23. Like, what does 21.8 really mean? Is it really as fast as, and is Tyreek Hill really 25 miles? I don't know. I don't really know. But what does that speed really translate into? And then what is actually a fast number? So like, what would be, and this, what would be like an MPH fast number, miles per hour, that a kid is running from an acceleration standpoint that you would say, okay, this is a kid that's going to run elite track times, which also means probably elite football athlete.
With everybody wants to compare times, and if we had better ways of doing it, it would really be fantastic. The NFL Combine does it in a terrible way, but it's kind of like terribly consistent. So
it's like, hey, we have a bad ref crew, but at least we know they're calling shit calls the whole day. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'll take that over it any day.
It depends on the surface, the timing system. So what you would do if you really wanted to create is to get everybody together on the same surface on the same day, and I believe that miles per hour would be really important to the recruiting process. Like if I had Tyreek running 24.9, and then you watched the skinny wide receiver for a high school team run at 21.9, you'd say these two guys don't compare. These guys are not in the same league. I have a freshman that is going to be a great football player and going to be a great track athlete, and I tell him all the time that no matter how good you become as a wide receiver, if you're running 21 miles an hour as a senior, you don't play anywhere. Right. If you're running 23.5, you're playing on TV. If you're a good receiver with that kind of speed. So there is an entry level. So what is high school fast? High school fast is 23 miles an hour spiked up on a track, a maximal speed. And I've had one guy run 24. One guy run 24 miles an hour. He is the world record holder as a freshman, 10:40. He is our state record holder as a 15-year-old sophomore, running 10:31. He graduated early. He just qualified for the NCAA Nationals. He ran 9.99 for Texas. So we're talking about a guy that is, like fastest in the nation type of
right.
So he ran 24.3 for me, 24.3, which means that he could be like Tyreek on the track or on the field. He could run at 22 on the field with pads and tired and all that kind of stuff. You have to be able to run really fast to run 22 on the field. So 24, by the way, a lot of people want to know what was his 40 time. Remember, all 40 times are BS based on where they go. He did go down to St. Louis and ran in, I believe, a region combine as a junior. He actually ran a track meet on a Saturday, drove down to St. Louis and ran a 40 there. And he was the fastest guy there, of course. He ran 4.35.
Okay.
So depending on how it's timed, if you are the fastest guy out of a couple hundred people, you're probably really fast. So comparative is really important, which brings up why track numbers have become so important. I'm good friends with the people from tracking football, where they add track times and jump distances and throw distances into the recruiting portfolio for college and NFL people. Because instead of that guy trying to compare his miles per hour to Tyreek Hill, let's compare his 100 meters. Tyreek almost broke 10 in the 100. This guy running 21.9 is probably running 11.5 in the 100. It ain't. So verified numbers, track and field does this. And by the way, 100-meter times are not nearly as indicative of a skilled player being a star as long jump and triple jump.
Interesting.
100%. And we've seen, Dave, we've had this conversation. We've talked about this a little bit, where that long jump, triple jump is more conducive to the explosiveness that football you need, right? Because football is more of a burst sport. It's not that sustained, right? Which is why, look, we can sit here and argue about the 40 all day. It's like, how many times on, what's always the thing, right? Like every coach always, oh, well, how many times does a guy really run 40 in a football game, right? It's more of that burst, which I think why guys have like fallen in love with timing that 10 or that 15. In reality, you're talking about the opposite, saying that causes these guys to now, slow up a little bit. And I think that's something that's, I love that you said that about the long jump and the triple jump, because it really it puts it all together.
I have a question for you guys. You probably, I think, even though you're not purely track people, if a kid is long jumping 21 feet, how does he long jump 23 feet? What does he need to work on?
Speed.
Number one,
right?
Speed and explosiveness.
Right.
So speed,
Right.
number one.
That approach.
And then number two is lifting. Number three is jumping high, jumping far in your workouts. And the final thing is bounce. Those are my pillars of athleticism: sprint fast, lift heavy, jump high, jump far, and bounce. So when you train the extreme, when you train somebody to increase their miles per hour, which I call raising the ceiling, they get better at all movement. They get better at sport-specific movement, agility,
change of direction,
change of direction,
jumping. I mean, like if a basketball player comes to me and says, "Coach, I can almost dunk. Can you help me dunk?" The answer is surprising. Yeah, we're going to sprint you. We're going to get you fast. A volleyball player never sprints in volleyball, but they need to sprint in training because they'll jump higher, they'll move quicker. So that'll train the extreme, and you train everything else.
So it's so interesting.
It's kind of comparable to, remember when we had Mike on? We had Mike Smith, who's the head coach of American Heritage. You know, he talked about he's the big football track, and he was talking about, look, doing other things other than just directly football, right? Like he talked about a receiver getting a release off the line is basically man-to-man in basketball, right? Like that's the stuff that he was talking about. But the main thing was that explosiveness, and how do we train that explosiveness to get us faster?
Well, I thought was also so interesting, and it's a great point. So remember, so in New Jersey, the New Jersey Player of the Year is a kid, Micah Ford, right? And we've never, maybe he ran track before this year. He's going to Stanford. He played for our 7-on-7 club a couple of years ago, and he's a great athlete. But we always were wondering like how fast he was, because we didn't know. He ran track this year, okay. And maybe he ran before because his younger brother's a track star, but he was really like, he's also a great footballer, but he now decided to run track. So he ran, the season's not over yet here, but he ran 10.73 in 100, which is very good. He's 6 feet 6'1", probably 210, 215.
Yeah,
big
thick.
kid. He long jumped though, which we thought was the most impressive thing. Remember, he long jumped 23 feet. Right. So we were like, wow, so he is fast. He's probably one of the faster kids in New Jersey. Maybe not the fast, but he's one of the faster guys.
Right, he might be
long jump at that weight. I mean, like at 210, 215 pounds, that's a big guy exploding 23 feet. And I'm sure, I just knowing, I'm sure a lot of it's raw athleticism. Obviously they're working speed. Obviously they're doing some stuff there. I don't know to what level, but the fact that he can explode and jump 23 feet at that weight tells me, obviously, that's a kid that has a certain. And so we're like, obviously Stanford. That's why he has a Stanford scholarship. Okay, yep. Let's take away that he was New Jersey Player of the Year. He is obviously a great football player, but there are other great football players in New Jersey that are really good. But what separates him is that level of explosion that he shows, and speed and explosion. That's a difference maker. So when we talked about it on other podcasts, we're like, we saw those numbers. We're like, okay, when other people in our area complain, why don't we have a Division I scholarship? We say, well, this kid just ran. This is his first year running track. He ran 10.73 and long jump 23 feet. He's probably if he wanted to be a track guy, he probably is a 24-foot long jumper and a 500 meter guy.
And he's also a phenomenal basketball player, right? So there you go. There. So you're talking. And listen, we talk about multiple sports train different things and help you without you even having that concept or even understanding it. And this just goes right along with it.
Yeah, when you said that, Derek, I thought of agility. And if you're not playing multiple sports, you have to do agility with some trainer and like cones and shit, like
ladders,
choreographed BS. That is not the way games are played. Games are played by reacting and moving correctly. And I'm good friends with Tony Villani, the king of agility.
Yeah. Great coach.
He does a great job. But you know who also does a great job at training agility? Basketball.
Yeah.
Basketball, you are moving in every direction. By the way, basketball players are always my most durable sprinters, which
That's
to me,
interesting.
Yeah, it is, because, you know, I have to think to myself, there's no scientific studies. I just know it to be true. So to me, it's the multi-directional, multi-planar, rotational movements that I think bulletproof us from hamstring injuries and quad injuries. So if people are only lifting and running in a straight line, they need those other things. They need them. And everywhere, I think now is, I had a 23-foot long jumper, 23.4, 20 years ago, who was 6'3", 220. You know, and like you were saying,
Yeah.
And I remember
physics.
I became like his agent, and he ended up going to Northwestern and then became an All-American at Southern Illinois, and then he played for the Vikings. But I remember calling the University of Wisconsin and saying, this guy is 6'3", he weighs 220, and he long jumps 23.4. And this guy said to me, oh, and he's a linebacker. And he said, is that good?
Right.
That's what he said to you?
Well, football coaches have no, like, they just,
some do,
what's
some
a triple jump? They don't, you know what I mean? For the most part, those guys, if you don't have a track coach on your staff, and this is talking from a guy that wasn't a track guy, like, I had no idea what that stuff means. I still have to message Dave and be like, hey, this kid ran a whatever 400. Is that good? Like, yeah, that's really good. Oh, okay. So I get it, but that's just fun. That's funny now. That's like,
and I think
good. You're like, yeah, it's pretty good.
Because of tracking football, they have educated those. I don't think college football coaches anymore say, is 23 good? You know, what I had to tell this guy is, there was a guy that was playing for the Niners at the time named Ty Streets, who was from Chicago. And I said,
Michigan, right? Went to Michigan?
Yeah, he was a superstar. And you know, like a thoroughbred wide receiver. And here I was promoting a linebacker. And I said, well, Ty Streets, in our state meet, he went 23.6 as a senior. And they went, oh, so this linebacker has like Ty Street athleticism? I go, okay, now you're getting it. You're getting it.
Yeah. You're like, you're
never
getting
got
closer.
offered.
Keep coming. Keep coming. There's more. Keep going.
I'll tell you, it's interesting. So for 6 years, I was an NFL agent. And here's an interesting thing. So I think I might have told you this, Derek, but in the beginning, and I was a track guy. So my partner, I played football with him at UConn. My partner in the business was a baseball guy. So he played football in college, but he was a baseball guy. He actually went originally somewhere else in college. Actually went to Sacred Heart originally on a baseball scholarship. Decided he wanted to play football, started playing football, and then transferred to UConn to play football there with us. And so he was my partner. So I was more of a track guy. He was I was a football track guy. He was a football baseball guy. And when we started recruiting players, we were kind of we had this theory, size and speed was the key, but we didn't look at track times the first couple of years. And then the first 2 years, we had quite a few guys get in because we had some good relationships. But from a time standpoint, we were disappointed over and over again of what we thought the guy was going to run and what he actually ran. And then the last 4 years, what we decided to do was only take guys in certain skill positions. Obviously, lineman is a little different, but as skill positions, we were only taking guys if they had certain track times in high school. And what we found was, and we really started to do it with the last couple of groups, like at a high level. And then we just, the money wasn't good enough for us. Guys weren't sticking long enough, to be able for us to make our money back. But knowing Villani and we had a guy in Justin Kavanaugh, and I know Bomarito, and those guys all do speed stuff. And so what we really realized, like we had a kid, his name is Trey Edmonds, who his brothers are in the NFL still, but he was in the NFL set for 7 years. We took him. He had a lot of injuries and all this stuff. He was an excellent running back coming out of high school. Had a lot of, just had a rough road, even though he played good, but he had a rough road. He didn't play a ton of games. But we knew he was going to run a grade 40 because we knew what his track times were in high school. He had run, he was like the sectional champ in Virginia, 210 pounds, ran like 22.0 in the 200 meters. And like, I think he was like 10.6 or something. We knew he was going to be, he was going to run a grade 40, and we knew he was going to get in because he was going to run a good 40. Okay. Even though they were like, they had question marks because he had a lot of injuries at the time. Well, this guy got in, and I remember talking to his father. I said, "Why are you taking him?" I said, "I know what he ran track. I know what his potential is. And if he's able to stay healthy, he'll last for a pretty long time, even though he's going to be a free agent prospect." And he got in, he played 6-7 years in the NFL. Okay. And he was never a full-time starter. He was a role player, but he was fast enough to always be a contributor, whether it was special teams, whether it was at running back, whether he had to catch balls, whether he had to block, he was able to do it. And his brothers were also track guys. They were first-round draft picks, his brothers. Would have loved to have those guys. My house might be bigger. But he had those guys were first-round draft picks. And part of the reason they were first-round draft picks, they were more accomplished a little bit more accomplished. They didn't get injured. And they also were track stars. So you knew they were going to run a good 40. Both brothers are still in the younger brothers are still in the NFL. I think they've been all pro guys, and they ran great track times in high school, and they ran what was surprisingly good 40-yard dashes to the NFL scout. And I remember them saying, surprisingly good 40-yard dash. And I'm like, I looked at the brothers' high school times. They were like 10. It wasn't surprising what they ran. It was basically they went and they trained. They got good training, decent training, and they were able to get a certain level of speed out. And, if they had guys like you, or if they went to I don't know if they went to they probably went to Exos or Villani, but, the guys they went to got them to a certain point where they were going to run whatever their ability had to do. Talk about what I thought was so interesting was how you maximize that the drive and turnover. So I watched a video of I've watched a lot of your videos, but I watched a video where you're one of your sprinters and was running on the curve. And I've heard Usain Bolt talk about this, but he makes it obviously very simple for everybody to understand, but like shoulders down, knees up, right? Like he says that. I don't know exactly what that means when he says that, when he's sprinting, but what I saw with your guy in the curve was the knees come up, but the level of turnover on the drive was so fast. And talk about how that's important and how spikes also help develop your speed, because I don't think people know the importance that in the old days, we used to run with the big, we want to protect our legs and not run in spikes. I remember this in the 90s. And my father was my track coach. And in his 80s, he changed, late 70s, he changed all that. He would tell me, we just focus on speed. We don't focus, like, we put them on spikes. Like, and he changed his philosophy in the 70s. But when I was running in the early 90s, we jogged, we did all this other. Talk about how spikes and turnover, how does that all work?
Yeah, I like the fact you said that, because it rings true to me as well. We did not run in spikes in high school or college because we ran too much. We would break our legs.
Right.
So when I say in our speed workout, we can get 40 guys done in less than an hour, and they're doing less than 60 seconds of work. Think about that. People say, well, don't they all have shin splints because they're wearing spikes?
There you go. It's such a common thing, right? Every kid, my shins, it's this.
They're wearing spikes for 15 seconds. I mean, that doesn't hurt you. And not many people say what you just said, Coach, that I really believe that I want to get all kids into spikes, that the optimal sprint training happens on a track with spikes. Now, having said that, if all you have is a sidewalk or a parking lot or a road, do it. because sprinting is, I mean, keep timing, recording, all that stuff. A lot of people that seek me out, they want me to correct their mechanics.
Right.
And that's very overrated. I can talk mechanics, I can talk it, and I can go down the rabbit hole of, complexities, and, maybe I'll be able to baffle you with my terminology and all that crap. But basically, at top speed, you need to be tall. You need to be tall. You can't be leaning forward, leaning back. But most fast guys do it fine. You need to be loose in the shoulders, which allows the arm to come up. But most important, the downstroke that passes the hips. That downstroke that passes the hips, and it stretches the shoulder right here, and the stretch reflex makes it pop back.
Got it.
Stretch, pop back. Distance runners run with T-Rex arms. So if all you're doing is jogging, you never teach the shoulders to get involved. So that big, loose shoulders, that's what Bolt was saying when he said shoulders down, that if you're hunched up, you don't have any flexibility.
Right.
But
You got to be loose.
Then they're down. And then the turnover part also has to do with the stretch reflex. That we want to get, my cue is to get big in the front.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is the knee comes up and the foot's out in front of the body.
Right.
That's the big in the front idea. And then we want to be short in the back. I realize big and short aren't exactly opposites, but it's descriptive to me. We never want to be long in the back. When we are toe off, if you can picture that, toe off in the back, we want to fold the leg and get it forward as soon as possible. Why do we fold the leg? A short lever is faster than a long lever. You cannot run fast with long legs. You have to fold it, bring it up.
Yeah, it takes too much time.
It does. It does. And so with those things said, those things will not make you faster unless you're doing the work, which means that speed grows like a tree. You can only sprint 2 or 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot sprint for 3 hours.
No.
So you must microdose sprinting consistently for the rest of your life. The consistency for the rest of your life only when fresh. God, is that hard for kids?
Right.
Kids
They don't get it because it's been drilled in their head the time they're 3 years old. You got to do this. You got to do this many. You got to keep going. You got to do this. It's quality over quantity, correct? Like it's like if you do this.
Did I lose Derek?
Lost Derek for a second.
Like,
oh
yeah. I'm going to name drop here, but this goes right along with Derek's comment about quality over quantity and the fact that we've been brainwashed.
Right.
We've been brainwashed. The church of hard work. That if we win, it's because we outworked the losers. If we lose, that's because we got outworked. So we like double down, all that crap. Saquon Barkley called me about 2 months ago and said, I've been watching your stuff. I want to know what I can add to my workouts that will make me faster. I feel like I'm losing a step. I'm more injury prone. And I'm like, well, you're going to hate my answer because I don't have anything to add. I think you need to subtract.
Do less. And
he said, and he's, of course, extremely articulate, like the smartest guy ever, hardest worker ever.
Right.
His training videos are legendary. And here he is talking to a high school track coach about getting faster. And he says, so maybe instead of doing 2 sets of 10 100s, maybe I should just do 1 set of 5. And I said, nah. Do no hundreds.
Yeah, don't even do it.
There's a long pause, and I just weighed him out. And he says, Coach, I feel like I've been brainwashed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we all have.
Yeah.
I'm a coach's kid.
You're in the same boat. We've been doing it forever. It's what's been preached. It doesn't matter what sport it is. Hell, even in non-sports, you've been brainwashed to just work. And if you do that, you'll be successful. But you got to work smart, and you got to do. I think consistency right? It's the hardest thing to do because
Well, you said the whole life, right? So when you're saying you're sprinting for your whole, like, consistently doing sprinting in micro doses for your whole life. So there's two interesting things that I learned. Now I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. So I was I took over many years ago a head football coach of a team that was terrible. Okay, and they were co-op, two high schools together, but they were 10 minutes away from each other. Terrible program. And then I was told the second year in, because of the bus thing, that I could only practice for an hour and 40 minutes because the kids had to get on the bus. They had no other way to get home. Parents were going to come get them. Some of the kids were, didn't have a lot of money. And the parents were working, you know what I mean? So they were working two jobs. And so we had to be done in an hour and 40 minutes. You know what was amazing? We got better. So I was forced to do it. So I had to condense everything I did.
You got better as a coach too.
I got better as a coach.
Right, because you didn't have a choice.
I had
we got to get this in. If not, we're really gonna lose.
Right, right. Because we're not gonna get it. And we had to focus what we did.
Yes.
And
quantity.
We focused. Like, we didn't do. Here's what was it, Derek. This will make you laugh. We didn't do much individual periods.
No.
We were working on what we had to do in the game. Basically, the hour and 40 minutes. Like, we might have did 20 minutes of stuff in the beginning, and we never did stretch lines. We actually started our practice with, and I have told Derek this. It was the greatest thing I ever did. We started our practice with 3 20-yard hills so we could get some power and speed in before we did, because we didn't have time to lift either. This team couldn't really lift as much. That team went to the eventually went to the state championship at one point, won like 17 and 19 games. And when I left there, they went from one of the worst teams to one of the best in North Jersey. Okay. And I always thought about that. I was like, wow, that was amazing, because I was forced into it, and it made me a better coach. Like, we never ran gassers. We didn't have time. It was really because we didn't have time, right? And I've heard your thing on gassers so many times, which I think is phenomenal. And I'll let you talk about that. But we never had time to run. We had to do everything we needed to do in the practice, get everything done, be ready for the game. And the truth is, most of the time we practice an hour and a half. The kids would be like, "We're done." I'm like, "We're done." Like, we were moving so fast. We had to move so fast that sometimes we would finish ahead, because it was in my head. The bus is coming at, I can't remember what time it was, but whatever the bus is coming, and the bus doesn't wait. It was like the late bus, and it didn't wait. If you didn't have the kids out there ready to go, those kids were stuck, and you were going to be driving them all home all over the place. You know what I mean? So we didn't want to do that, have to drive 20 kids home. And so that was really the situation. The second thing was with my own son. My own son doesn't have this, like, he's really smart, but he doesn't have this ability to, like, let's do things that are long and drawn out. So I started working on him with stuff like with run, any sprinting or football, or when he plays baseball or basketball. We do nothing. We started doing nothing when he was like 6 or 7 years old for more than 15 minutes. That was it. Like, we would dribble. It would be like, and everything was competitive. It was like 20 right hand, 20 left hands. 5 layups have to be made in the right. 5 layups have to be made in the left. You got to make 5 shots here. And it would be done in 15 minutes, right? And he loved it. And I was like, wow. And we would do this with everything. Like, play baseball with him outside. It's like, okay, I want 10 pop flies, 10 grounders, like 10 pitches. We'll hit with, like, because we can't hit baseballs in our yard because we'll break some things, but we use like those circle ball. 10 swing, and he's done. And it's the crazy part is 15, 20, 25 minutes. He's improved at everything he's done rapidly, and we never work out for more than 15, 20 minutes. When I put him in training with other people, which, you do, or practices, he'll be at the whole practice. He'll work hard, but I don't see him improve as much as when there's a rapid, like, time clock on him. Like, hey, we got to
have time to think about it, right? Like, when you just put something together for a short, even think about a burst, right? For the most times when you burst, if you get you got the ball in your hand and you're bursting for 10, you're not thinking about much other than, I got to go. And that's it. That's the mechanics. And when you keep going through that, I think when you give those the opportunity to overthink it, that's when you get in trouble.
Talk about the gassers thing. I love it. I love your take on the gassers thing. I watch it 9,000 times. You know.
Yeah. So
it's such a common thing, right? I mean, every coach across the country talks about gas or this, gas or that. High school to college to middle school, everybody does them.
For many years, well, first of all, Lombardi said that fatigue makes cowards of us all,
right?
Which is the smartest statement of all times. Yeah, I don't care how tough you are. If you're jet lagged and tired, I might be able to whoop you. I mean, it's tired is not good. So what did coaches put into action because of that? They try to get their kids drag ass tired every damn day, thinking it would magically keep them from being tired in football games. And they're just flat wrong. And then you have these, the aerobic warrior cult out there that believes that if you don't develop the engine of a marathoner, the aerobic engine of a marathoner in the summer, that you cannot recover from intense 5 seconds of work. That, like in football, I just posted on Twitter today, back when Matt Ray and I used to agree on everything, now we don't.
Saw that. That was great. Back when I used to repost Matt's stuff. Loved it. Coach.
Somebody said it was a subtle jab. It was, he might think it's a knife in the back, but
it's a little,
anyway.
little like flick of the ear, It's like, hey.
He's probably going to come after me hard. But
here we go. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. I'm sure that we could have coffee together and talk about it. It's not like we hate each other,
If you're not pissing somebody off, you're not doing it right.
I just hate everything he said for the last 3 years. But anyway, when he starts talking about football players need to play soccer in the spring and they shouldn't go out for track, it's like, okay, that's kind of a delineation between how you think and I think. Right. So anyway, and what he said was he charted 12 football games, college football games. He was working for Alabama at the time. And the work to rest ratio was 1 to 15. So if you do the math, a 5-second play, I don't know what, that's 15 times 5, 75 seconds, 5-second play, 70. Right. That's including penalties, half times, everything. Because all these coaches say, hey, we run a play every 8 seconds, blah, 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 blah. No, you don't. No, you don't. I mean, it
takes 8 seconds for the fat referee to freaking spot the ball.
Yeah, penalties and timeouts, right. And blah, blah, blah. So anyway, football is an interesting game because it is a short sprint and a long rest. Short sprint, long rest. And even though my stuff is not in the textbooks that S&C people have to memorize, that have that paragraph that say that without a strong aerobic base, you will not recover from high speed outputs. Okay. This is one of those things where I go to McCaffrey trained by Brian Kula. They don't do anything more than 5 seconds. They never run a lap. They never do endurance ever. They stack anaerobic work on top of each other. And It looks a lot like football. Now, if you see the training videos, they're very impressive. But what you don't see is the recovery in between. Because without that recovery, you cannot go the speeds that McCaffrey is going or explode the way he's exploding.
Not on a consistent basis, right? Like he wouldn't make it a full game if he had to do that over, you know what I mean?
Yes, it's just impossible. I don't care how much marathon training you do in the summer, you don't do that. And so what he becomes is super athletic and super fast. And I think super athletic, super fast guys tend to play an entire football game well. And I'll never forget the question I asked Kula. I said, has he ever had to do one of those stupid ass conditioning tests?
Yes.
And he goes, well, yeah, the Panthers did. They did a lot of things dumb with the Panthers. But yeah, he had to do like 16 110s. I said,
Oh, there we go. I had to do it. That was my conditioning test for college. 16 110s. And, skill guys have to make it in this. Bigs have to make it in this. Those middle guys, right?
I
Which
had
always ended up being your quarterbacks or
I had
whatever.
300s with a 2-minute rest. I don't know how
Yeah,
that
Oh.
I mean, it was like, you got to run a 16, then you got 45 seconds, then you're going back for another one, then you got to hit them all.
So
we had
here's the
great
key.
players that would fail those tests, and I was
There
like,
was more
I was
guys that were
intermediate hurdler.
dropping
I was
at the
intermediate
50.
hurdler.
They just,
I was going to run that test good no matter what. I mean,
guys just walked off, right? Like our starting receivers and stuff weren't making times. It was like, what are we doing? Like, what
The interesting thing is that McCaffrey, I said, was there hell to pay because he had not trained
right.
for that type of work? And he goes, no,
Right.
he won the conditioning test.
Of course. So many of these
faster.
guys are like, all right, well, we have to do 16 110s when I get to camp. So let me prepare and, I'll work on this so I
Yes.
can get this.
That's not
And
football. That's
You're
not football.
training for a test, and now all of a sudden you get to actual camp and you can't make it 3 plays going top speed. You're shot. Well, you trained for a test. You didn't train for football.
Yes, and that top speed thing is so important. One of the things I love to talk about is Florida State. When Willie Taggart, the worst coach in America, was coaching at Florida State, but he has a hell of an agent.
Rough run.
He has a hell of an agent because he keeps getting head jobs. Okay,
Hey,
so
a lot of these guys do it the right way. I don't know how they do it, but they make it happen. I mean, you got some of Jimbo Fisher making $78 million to sit home and play checkers.
Yep, it's a good gig. So what Willie had an opener where Florida State was the favorite, and they had like a dozen cramps in the fourth quarter, and Willie threw the team under the bus. They didn't listen about hydration. They weren't drinking the pickle juice, the blah, 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 blah. And, if our guys don't buy into what we tell them, that's on them, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. And what I wanted to tell Willie is that, there were probably really hot days in August.
Yeah.
Where they practiced 3 hours or 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. How many cramps did they have doing that?
There you go.
None. You know what causes cramps? An overactive, nervous response to heavy contractions. And basically it's this. If you practice at 10 miles an hour and try to play at 20 miles an hour, you're going to cramp. It's not the sure, hydrate and all that stuff is fine. But the problem with most coaches is that they practice slow and try to play games fast. And the only way you can practice fast is by having built-in recovery, a built-in halftime in practice,
Right.
a built-in. I mean, coaches still hate water breaks. They hate it.
Used to be punishment, right? Like you ain't getting water.
Yeah, there's a coach, a successful school in Illinois that used to have the water a quarter mile away from the field. And he said, be back in 3 minutes. The seniors would be like, F this. We don't need
I'm not doing that.
I'm not going to run a quarter mile to get a sip,
doing that.
run a quarter mile back. So anyway, that's the world that we all were brought up in.
Right.
And so I'm this, this contrarian that's bringing up other ideas. And another thing that you've got to, I got to say this. You're talking about your son doing the 10 minutes of this, 5 minutes of that. I bet he was having more fun doing that.
Yes. That's the thing.
Boy, we are good at what we like. And football coaches have a hard time making practice likable.
Yes. And honestly, it's all, I noticed that with almost all sports, like, and you talk about track, we made, honestly, like, this makes me laugh. So when I work out my son, because I follow all your stuff, like I'll put, I have 2 hurdles out. I'll have him do some like little, he's 9 years old. I'll go over low hurdles, like a few times, 5 times. We'll do two or 3 sprints. Even if we run around trees, he goes, time me. Okay. I said, perfect. We'll time you. So he runs, let's say 11 seconds the first time. Okay. You ran 11. Okay. This time he ran 9 seconds, and he wants to know, okay, well, I ran 9 seconds. I don't even care that it's not exactly like he just likes that part. And what I learned is he's on his Catholic school's youth track team, and he doesn't like track practice. Okay. And I'll tell you why he doesn't like track practice. Because the track coach is a distance runner. Okay. And that's what she knows. And they make them jog a lap.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The first day I was flabbergasted. They always want me to help out. And I'm like, listen, you don't want me to help out because I'm going to do it very differently than you. If you just want me to be there to help corral the kids, I'm glad to corral them, because they're youth kids or whatever. But the first day she had him do 2 laps. My son was like, get me out of here. Okay. First of all, he's a sprinter. Then, and he's a smart kid. So he questions a lot. He questions me, questions a lot of things. So then they ran a 400, a 300, and 2 200s. I mean, half the team didn't return the next practice. I was like, what are you doing? I was
You
like,
just cost yourself a lot of stuff.
run them. If you were preparing them for a 200, okay, run 1 300, 1 200, 1 100. Okay. But what you say is 100% correct. They should probably be running 50s and 60s, 5 or 6 of those, right? And so that's what I do with him on my own. So it's funny because when he goes to like 1 or 2 track meets because he's doing other sports, but he runs well in those track meets, and everyone's like, how does he run well? Like he makes like 1 practice a week. He's playing, he plays basketball all year round. And I said, we do literally 20-yard sprints. We run a 20-yard sprint, like, or a 30 or 40-yard sprint around trees. Like he runs around a tree, like that's like his little track around the trees in the grass. Okay. I have him do it in spikes. Actually, I'll have him do it in his cleats, just so he gets the feel of running on that plate, so, and I've watched him improve on it, but he hates track practice. He hates elongate. Like they come in and I'll see a guy. I said this to our youth football coach. I'm the head football coach now. I was for his team. And I practice for an hour and 20 minutes. Okay. I think we should. And I always tell my coaches, we should probably only practice an hour. Okay. These guys are out there for 2 hours.
It's insane.
2.5 hours with 10-year-olds or 11-year-olds. And they're like, you guys are done so quick. I'm like, we probably should be done quicker. And they're
Absolutely.
Like, what do you mean? I'm like, how many plays can they absorb at this age? How many times are you going to have them tackle a dummy? You know what I mean? Teach them how to tackle a dummy, make sure it's done right, do it several times, and move them on to the next thing, And they're like, and our team lost 1 game, like 8-1, they're like, how does that work? And I'm like, the point is, and I learned a lot of this from you, but also from some of my experience, is that good reps at high speed is most important, and really getting that repetition right fast and then do it again versus, okay, you got to step here and you got to do this and you got to do that. Stop the whole play. 15 guys, 22 guys are standing around watching as you explain something to a kid for 10 minutes. And then you got to run a play and expecting the kid to remember it. And this goes for high school too. When you do that, now you're at 3.5 hour practice, 3 hour practice for no reason, when that could be an hour and a half. I just coach them on the fly. And the best coaches I've been around in football have had that philosophy, and they may not be perfect, like you really getting what you're talking about, because you really are, I think, next level stuff, which I think is going to become the norm eventually.
I love
hopefully. It. But I've noticed the track coaches, the guys who really have been really phenomenal football coaches, the guys that I've been around when I've been an assistant at the high school level, and they had this pace in practice, teach on the fly, get us out of here, and let's not be here all day, and try to get high quality reps, because
quality over quantity every single time.
Yeah, if it's low quality, like
old school coaches used to say that all the time, though.
Tell me, talk about that.
Well, I think too, like, I think it goes a lot with the kids that we're dealing with now, right? And the social media stuff and the immediacy, if that's even a word, sounds good. Immediacy of information that they get. They can get everything quick, right? Everything comes at them right now. Same thing with their training. They don't want to do something where it's long, it's drawn out. They want, and they're always going to know, they want to ask why. So it's right now, what is it, what's happening, quick, immediacy, and now let's get to the next thing, the attention spans. And look, as a teacher, for 9 years, you realize real quick, man, like, hey, I only got these kids for 10-15 minutes max of attention span where they're really going to be plugged in. So I really got to that's why I used to love to switch things up, right? Quick 5 minutes of this. All right, guys, we're transitioning to something else. And then eventually that was where you saw them be more successful, was when those things were put into short bursts of positive thing. And then they saw the positivity come from it.
The things that, after listening to you guys talk, and you're right on as a chemistry teacher, all good teachers.
Oh, baby.
Baby. They don't go 55 minutes of the same crap.
Nope.
You better do 3 things in those 55 minutes,
yes,
minimum.
Yep.
So the 2 things I want to add to what you guys said is I say to gamify practice or gamify training. Now,
I love it.
That has like 2 different meanings. One is to make it more like the game. Like we talk about football, the game has breaks. The game has a halftime. The game, you might be on the sideline for 30 minutes waiting to go back in. So make practice more like the game. It should not be continuous movement. That's not the game. Then the other thing is to gamify training by keeping score in practice.
Yes.
Now, it might be,
I love that. Yep.
Like in football,
just a point system. You could come up with some type of point system for this. These guys did this, or this group did this, or they're.
Put the ball on the 10-yard line and say we're going to run 10 plays to see how many touchdowns we're going to score.
Yep, we did that. I remember Derek Riosi did it from the 5
seconds left.
We used to make it as competitive as possible, right? Or hey, you're going through offensive plays or doing something like that. Hey, punt, let's go. Punt, go, let's go. Like just to create it, like. And now I can justify how we're doing, now look, we're practicing game situations. We're practicing guys coming off the sideline and transitioning and going back.
Fun.
And now everybody's plugged in because it's, oh shit. Like I'm not just sitting here holding the bag.
Yeah. And then in training, the way we keep score is by timing, hey, we're going to see what your vertical is today. We're going to see what your standing long jump is today. We're going to see
those guys perk up real quick when you talk about, hey, we're going to keep score.
Because cats seem lazy. Cats are athletes.
Yeah.
They seem lazy.
Damn right.
But they're killers. They're killers when they compete.
And relentless.
They're killers. And then the next thing is important because I've done these things enough to know that there's a listener out there thinking, this guy is all fluff. This guy, he's soft. This guy has probably never gotten a fight in his life. I haven't ever won a fight, but I've been in fights. Okay. So the thing is, they think that if you're not grinding them into the dirt, that they will never become a good soldier for you. And I think it's a game. I don't think we're creating.
I do
soldiers.
too. And I also think people are scared of what they don't know and new things. But listen, there's nobody that was ever highly successful that didn't take a chance or do something that nobody else had ever done. And look, if you're not considered crazy or over the top, then you ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing in this world. That's just me. That's how I feel about it. If you're not testing the waters or even constantly changing or tweaking or learning, then, if you're standing still, you're done.
And the thing about, I have a weird take on toughness. I think toughness is really a measure of love, which is a weird.
Right. How much do you care?
And if you gamify practice, if practice is the best part of a kid's day, first of all, like I told you, coach, is that you become a better coach when your kids are enthusiastic about your sport. If you
want to play,
if you have a group of uninspired people that don't want to be there, you're going to have to be a horse's ass.
Yes, and you're going to be looked at like the horse's ass, and then everybody, and then not only are you going to be miserable, or the kids, everybody's miserable.
You go home and your wife is miserable.
She hates you too. Like, what? Why are we doing this if you're not happy? Like,
if we can create a love of track and field or football or whatever, those kids will fight through that fourth quarter for you. I truly believe that. I believe that love.
I think you're 100% right, Coach.
And it's just a different way of looking. I don't think gassers create toughness. I think love does. Like, I love football. It's the best part of my life. It's the best part of my day.
Right.
If you get a team feeling like that, honestly feeling, not just saying what you want them,
Not just the smoke and mirrors shit, like the
right?
real deal. Like, coach, I care.
Yeah, and they will show that on the field.
And then they'll run through a wall for you. And I've always done
Oh.
that too. And Dave could tell, like, I am a player's coach, right? Like, I want to know what's going on with you on and off the field. And once those guys are comfortable to share that stuff with me, then I know, like, hey, I'm asking you to do this and I know it sucks. You know what I mean? Like, you just honest with them. Like, this is
Honest.
hard. I get it, buddy. Like, but we got to push through it. Or, hey, let me talk to you about what's going on. And look, why don't we do this or do, once you show that and they have that level of comfort to where they're going to open up to you or have a conversation or talk to you about that, then they'll run through a wall for you, right? It just opens that kid up to so much more because now they're comfortable and they're not just looking at you like, well, this guy's telling me to do this and he don't know what he's talking about. If you're just honest, open, and create that level of it, now that passion and love comes out and they'll do it all for you. And then that stuff, I think now you have peer to peer when teammates start talking to each other and like, hey, coach really cares about us. Like, we should be getting
I like
after
how
this.
the environment that we talk about is the environment, coach.
Yeah, culture, the culture of everything.
The environment. So creating a fun, competitive environment and gamifying it in today's day and age, especially, right?
Absolutely.
They play Madden. They play whatever a video game.
Everything is a
everything
game.
is gamified anyway for them. That's what they're growing up learning, right? They watch the YouTube videos of some random people doing a basketball shooting contest. Like, that's what they watch.
Everything is a competition.
Contest.
Like everybody, any game, what's the first thing everybody asks? Who won? Who lost? Right? Like, did you win? Right? There's always a winner.
Well, beyond that, beyond the winning, losing, it's the competitive part. Like, there's always a winner and loser, right? And they're going to have to learn to deal with losing as much in a lot of cases as they will have to deal with winning, right? But the competitive part and making competition fun, like, that's one of the things that, like, making the fact that you're competing, you may win, you may lose. Okay, obviously we all want to win as much as humanly possible. That's why we're doing it, and we want to be as successful as we can. But right. It's the enjoying the competition, enjoying that process. So, like, Nick Saban always talks about the process, which sounds like a grind to everybody, right? That's like, he's right on the process is important. But I think what you're talking about is a next level thing. Like, how can we make the process enjoyable so they want to do the process? Right. So they want to do the process that ultimately is going to get them to where they want to be successful on the field or track or basketball, whatever it is they're doing. But how can we make the process more enjoyable and not enjoy? You're right, like, because that's
you want them to love the work.
The funniest comment, I gotta love the comments. But when I see the comments on your thing, I always got to go to the comments because invariably there's a guy, and you I'm sure you read some of it, you just laugh to yourself. Invariably, there's a guy that goes, Gassers is more. I played Division I football at scholarship. Derek played Division I football, and the Gassers are about mental toughness. And they always say, it's not about, they might get what you're saying. They'll say, it's not about, it's about mental toughness. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I can tell you this for myself, okay? And you said it with Lombardi's statement. Like, toughness is about desire to make something happen, okay? It's the desire to make something happen. And you said fatigue makes cowards of them all, right? Which Lombardi said. Well, if you're mentally drained, that desire is gone.
Right.
So how much are you getting out of someone if the desire becomes like, listen, when it's 10 o'clock at night, I don't feel like working out as much as I do when it's 7 a.m, okay, or noon, because my body is tired. It's time for me to go to sleep. It's time for me to recover, right? That's what I'm hearing. What really is a breakthrough thing is every football coach will always say, Saban's the greatest college football coach maybe of all time. He talks about the process. But and that there's a part to it. But making the process competitive and fun will get more out of the kids. And I notice it. Listen, you go to college practices.
You see it
now.
with our youth camps, Dave, right? Like even our youth camps, like, hey,
Yep.
if we want a kid to run, it's like, hey, put the kid next to him and hey, we're racing.
Right.
You know, or something of that nature, right? Like there has to be some competitive type of thing that's involved in it. And look, we all know that when your best player is your hardest worker, the guy that just loves the process of working, that's the rarity. It's those other guys that it's like, hey, how do you dangle that bait, or what is that bait to get them to want to come out here for summer workouts and do those types of things? Well, I think that goes along with making it fun, making it interesting, making it maybe it's something they've never done, but you also have to show them some light at the end of the tunnel that it's actually working.
As being someone who, as an athlete, was probably one of the hardest workers on every team I've ever played on, it did not make me enjoy it. So that's the thing. Like I did not, like I was the guy that would run, a linebacker group up in college. Okay, Dave finishes first in the gasser. I didn't enjoy the process. I was more scared to not win, because my job would be gone. Right. Like if I wasn't first, if I wasn't always leading, you're worried about your job. Now, if they said to our group, okay, instead of saying everyone has to be in 20 seconds. Well, for me, who was fast, I was a 14.4 hurdler. Let's say it was a sprint. I could be like, well, I'm going to win the sprint and still get under the time. And I'm not really getting as much out of myself because there might have been a guy that really wasn't as fast as me that had to work harder to get there. I didn't. I was a track guy. Like I would lead the linebacker group every single sprint, and I was probably going 75%. But the coaches thought it was the greatest thing ever. But actually, I was lowering my ability. If they put a time on me and they had stopwatch on what I had and they marked it and they measured it each time, I would have ran as fast as I could and I would have got faster instead of probably training myself to get slower, as the other guys who were slow were probably getting faster. It's taking the top tier and bringing them down. That's what with the gassers, that's what it's doing. Like if I'm the fastest guy in the team and we run gassers and I know I'm faster than everybody else, I'm actually getting worse because the guy who's not that good might be getting a little bit better because he has to work hard.
The guy like me, right?
I'm not getting better.
Like a guy like me, right? Where I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the biggest, but shit, I won every gasser, right? Like, and I sure as hell won that last one we did because I was winning it, right? Like, and I was out to prove a point that I can be first without having all the other intangibles, I don't know.
It's mind blowing.
It's such a crazy concept. And even today, right? Like you look at all the youth guys. What's the first thing they do when all the young guys? It's like, guys, take a lap. Like, okay, here we go. I'm like, I did that shit when I was freaking in middle school. These guys are still doing laps. Like, holy hell. Okay.
I've watched a youth coach, and I love the guys. They're great guys. Like football coaches, a lot of them are great. They're just great guys. But I watched his super heavy linemen. They send them on like laps. They're sending them on laps when they're mad at them. And I'm like, this kid is thinking to himself, why am I doing this? As he's running like a 400 yards.
Especially the kids now, because
he's
they
a lineman. He's never going to
go
more than 3 steps, half the time in a game, and he's running a 400 yards. And I think to himself, wait a minute, you're going to need this kid in 10 years because he's going to be 6'2", 320 pounds. But instead, that kid's going to go. Maybe he's throwing the shot put, which is good for track. He decides I'm going to throw the shot put because I'm not going in and running around the thing where everybody else is looking at me and mad at me. It's really interesting. Before I let you go, and I want you before we leave to tell us where you're going to be next too, so we can talk about. Do you have a way of keeping score that you like with your track guys? Like how you mark the time? Do you keep score with them? Is there what do you utilize to say, hey, each time when we get on the track, we got to get better?
I'm a spreadsheet savant. Like if you're going to record, rank, and publish, you got to get good at spreadsheets. And I love
Absolutely.
Google Sheets because you just hit public and and then you can tweet out the link, all that kind of stuff. We do about 8 different metrics: 10-yard fly, 10-meter fly, 20-yard fly, 35-meter fly on a curve, 40-yard fly, 15 into a 10. We do the 40-yard dash, the 55-yard dash, and then we also measure all jumps. Like triple long jump, triple standing triple jump. We do 5 bounds, 5 single-legged bounds. We measure all those things, and then we record, rank, and publish. Which it used to be, I would do it, and then I would print and put up on a bulletin board or in the weight room. And
I
now,
miss those days.
of course, it's Twitter, it's
Instant.
pntrack.com, our website. We do no workouts that are not measured, none. And embedded in those spreadsheets is their 2023 best, their 2022 best,
Right.
their 2021 best. So
we're showing you the progress.
We're showing progress because that is motivation. And then
absolutely. And
then with all of our flies, we have the far column is miles per hour, where I don't even have to calculate the miles per hour. The formula is there.
Yep, it's all plugged into the spreadsheet, correct? And
then the other thing that we do, and you guys would love this, is I promote the truck stick, where you mentioned, Dave, earlier that you figured out that the combination of size and speed was pretty powerful, right? And what we found is it's not only powerful, it is, if you are big and fast in football, you will find a spot to play. Period.
100%.
Period. Now, having said that, if you're the fastest guy on the team and you can't catch and you weigh 125 pounds, you ain't going to play a lick. Right. Speed is important, but speed and size. So what we do is just use
it's the combination.
The physics of momentum, where we take, and if anybody wants my spreadsheet that calculates this for you, all you have to do is this: weigh your kids, enter the pounds. Let's say your kid weighs 220 pounds.
Right.
And then find their 10-yard fly time. Enter that. Everything else is calculated for you, which will allow you to come up with newtons per second squared, which is the momentum thing. And what we found is this: that if we have guys that are 900 at I take that back. If they're over 800, they're going to be like an all-conference player at a medium-sized high school. If they're over 700, they're going to be a starter, very good player. If they're over 600, they're pretty damn good. Having said that, the offensive tackles that are taken in the first round.
Yep.
Remember I said that 800s are like all-conference players?
Yep.
Like Tristan Wirfs ran a 4.85 40 at a weight of 322 pounds. Yeah. He was also a 3-sport athlete. Marvelous. Somehow he was not the first pick, but he's the best offensive tackle in football. So if you calculate his momentum, it's a little over 1,300.
Wow.
So we start to understand here that the combination of size and speed truly makes you a better player. And that's so hard for coaches, because I had a guy say, hey, you just need to work at those offensive tackles taking that one side step. Get that one side. They don't need to sprint. All they need is that, a step here, step there. They just need to be quick. They need to have good feet. If you run 5.4 in the 40 as an offensive tackle at the combine, you will not be drafted.
No way.
No way. And if you take the average offensive tackle at the high school level that weighs 260 pounds or something, who never sprints, they ain't running no 5.4.
No, hell no.
They run 5.8, 5.9.
Right.
And so I think the truck stick, the combination of power and speed is just brilliant. And once you start doing that, you'll be like, not just thinking we need to get our guys bigger. You'll be thinking we need to sprint our bigs.
Absolutely.
Yep. And Derek, I think you coached with him, and I want to let Coach go after this. but you coached with Toll, and one of the things I saw now, he didn't understand.
Hell no.
No, he didn't understand what coach was talking about.
Not
He
even close. Total
but,
opposite.
but here's the thing that I did think the line coach did, which just in the thought process, because he knew that a guy should be faster. He's running to death, but he was the first guy that I ever saw in high school put linemen on the track, offensive linemen.
Oh, he did it all the time.
And he would run them in hundreds. Now, he wasn't thinking the way that Tony thinks.
But at least he was on the track.
He was on well, that's what I'm saying. He had him on the track, and I thought to myself, that's the first, and from when I was playing to coaching, he was the first guy that I saw, and I was like, this is before you got there with him, but they won the state championship that year for like the first time, I think. And then they kept rolling from there.
They were that national championship.
They were national championship team.
Studs.
But what he did kind of figure out, and he didn't go all the way because he wasn't a track guy per se. But what he did figure out is if I got my linemen faster,
he knew that
they were going to be better, right? And he actually put them on the track. They were running. I remember they were running hundreds and 80s, and they weren't taking it to the level that you were. But those are the things that, like, when you see those things, and now you're taking that thought process to an elite level, right? The level that it needs to be at. You're thinking about it in the way that it really has to go, and there's probably an even farther. You'll figure it out, but there's an even more, maybe even higher level that you keep pushing it through. But when I saw him do that, I thought, wow. I'm like, he's the first guy that I've seen that says, you know what, the linemen are athletes. They've got to run.
And that was something he really preached as well.
And he timed them, by the way. He was timing them. I actually remember that. He was timing them.
He
was
like, definitely was a guy. He definitely was a coach that made guys compete, right? Like, he wanted guys to compete no matter what. I mean, I
still
look back at it now and it's like, holy hell, we were going one-on-one offense, defense, like the day before a game, full pads banging, right? And that's what he preached. But like I said, he really understood the fact that, like, if I can have all of my guys fast, it will be on a better, in a whole better world. Dave, I did have one thing that I wanted to ask Coach about because I've heard, so Coach Ciano here, Rutgers, right? He has, and he explained this to us when he was talking about guys that he was recruiting, right? And he had taken this, I believe, when he was all the way back from when he was with the Bears. He talked about delta time, which he was talking 20 to 40 within the 40-yard dash. And he would look at that 20 to 40 time. And that basically is how he justifies if he's going to recruit a guy or not. Look, if you're this time from this delta time, and I don't even know if that's what it's called, but that's what he called it. So I had never heard of it. And so if you run a 40 and from your 20 to the 40 is this, I'm going to recruit you. Have you ever heard of anything like that, Coach? Or could just give me a little bit of, if something, or how you would view that in terms of, does that really constitute, I guess, maybe football speed he's looking at in terms of, the first 20 is this. And then, for the most part in football, it's 20 and beyond. So could you speak a little bit on that?
Yeah. No, if I get you right, he liked to look at the second half of the 40.
Correct. Yeah. And that was really like, okay, if you're this time, I'm going to recruit you. And if you're not, okay, then, you go do your thing.
And I'm heartwarmed because I've always pictured Schuman as being like ultra conservative, old school, blah, 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 which most old school people are like, oh, 40s are dumb.
Right.
We only need to do 20s. In football, you hardly ever run more than a 20. So we're going to be acceleration focused. University of Illinois said, we don't run 40s because people pull hamstrings. And I'm like, well, they pull hamstrings because you don't run 40s.
It's like, that's why you've been at the bottom of the barrel for.
So what Greg and I would agree on is I believe that speed is the tide that lifts all boats. And you could go further than that and say max speed, even though I love the 40 because 40s half excel, half top speed. But as you improve somebody's max velocity, all other movements come with it. Left, right, change of direction, stop, start, an offensive tackle, putting his first foot in the dirt. because he's got a defensive end that was a high school sprinter coming at him, and that foot has to beat that guy's first foot. So all those things happen, and it goes right back to that truck stick thing. Now I'm sure that y'all would not be recruiting anybody that did not have the size or skill requirements necessary to play.
Right.
But among guys that have the skill set and size to play the game at that level, which I would argue size is probably the number one ticket to, if you're an offensive tackle and you weigh 195, I don't care how fast you are. You're not going to play at Rutgers, right? Okay, so it goes back to, okay, we have a high school kid that might be able to play in the Big Ten. How big is he? How fast is he? Now, how fast?
First questions asked.
That speed, I would want to know it. I don't check Delta time. I want to know the last 10. The last 10, and then we're going to take that 10, 20.45, divide by their time, and we're going to get a miles per hour. And if we can get bigs running over 20 miles an hour,
oh hell yeah,
their truck stick is going to be around 1,200. They are an absolute recruited player. And what people don't understand is that you can be a great high school player with great size, but if you are a 16-mile-an-hour dude, you are just another fat guy.
And I think that's the biggest factor or adjustment, high school to college. I don't care what level of college football you're playing, the just overall speed of every individual is on a whole nother level.
And you can say it's athleticism. Right. I love that word. That we recruit athletes. We don't recruit bigs. We recruit big cats, big athletes. Cats.
That offensive tackle was also the center on the basketball team, right? Or he played volleyball, or he did some of those other things. Like, let's rock.
If I asked you guys or anyone else in the business, when you say that kid's athletic, what does that mean to you? Fast, explosive, maybe you get to strong. You know what you never say? Endurance.
Right.
Never. No, we want
He's great in the fourth quarter.
Fast and explosive. We want an offensive tackle that has like 8 or 9 dunks in his recruiting video. We want that big guy that throws a shot put 63 feet and was a state champion. By the way, Tristan Wirfs, 5-time state champion in the throws. 5 times. 3 times heavyweight wrestling champion in Iowa. So, I mean, we're talking
in Iowa. So people like Iowa wrestling people like
he was like he's like my favorite offensive tackle because he's a multi-sport athlete, he's fast, and he's great. So those things, I just think that more and more people are starting to think that way. Having said that, when I talk to high school coaches and I say, what percentage of the bigs at the high school level are truly doing sprint training?
Right.
They think it's less than 10%.
I would say so.
Like, what?
Yeah.
Right. It's like, hey, we have the secret sauce here. Like, this works, and it's proven that it works, right? And I mean, look, you look at a guy in the like Trent Williams. First thing, athlete, right?
Fast.
Like they say, like, you know, they play pickup basketball. He's playing point guard at 300 whatever pounds.
How are you going to stop Micah Parsons?
You can't.
Who ran 10 whatever in 100 in high school? Was a high school running back. I mean, ran for like thousands and thousands of yards. Obviously,
it's about being athletic, right? And it's about those other things. I can't tell you. Look, I was, when I was up north coaching in northern New Jersey, we had a guy get recruited, full ride to Rutgers. The coach, it wasn't football. He came to his basketball game. He watched one half of basketball, came into the office and was like, he's got the offer if he wants it. Like,
and I agree with you too on the basketball things of and how it translates to track and football. I think is 100. I remember there was a girl. Her name was she might have just retired from WNBA, but there was a girl. I don't know if you remember, Derek, Essence Carson from Patterson Eastside.
Oh, stud.
She was this New Jersey Player of the Year in basketball. Never ran track until her senior year. She ran track. She was the state 400-meter champ.
Yeah, crushed it.
Never
did it before in her life.
she ran like 54 or 53 54 seconds, I think it was in the
That's such a stupid. It's such a stupid.
But all the stuff she had been doing in basketball when she started running track had a direct translation. And I'm sure if she ran into it, she just really ran. I think she ran just that race. That was the only race she ran because she probably played AAU basketball in the spring, But she came out and she was the state champ in the 400 meters. And I was like, it's amazing how it translates. And you probably see this great debate. I don't know if you saw it on social media, but like Derek, you may have saw it, where the basketball players were saying, the pro basketball players saying,
they said, look, there's 30 guys in the NBA that could go and play football.
That they could play basketball. And the true answer to me is, they're both right. That some of those basketball players could play pro football, right? And some of those pro football players could play pro basketball if they made that their main sport. I think actually both of them are right. They're saying, oh, one can't do the other, but the truth is, some of those guys, because they have such high level of athleticism, if they focused it in one area,
right,
in a different area, it would be able to be possibly a pro athlete. Now,
right. Like you're telling me Randy Moss or something couldn't have played hoops, like
he was like a West Virginia player. I've seen Jason Williams talk about it. He said he said he was better than he was in high school. And Jason Williams played 10 years in the NBA?
Oh, easily. I mean, he's a NBA champ.
He said he was better than him.
Allen Iverson could have played.
Iverson was a two. Yeah, like he was a two.
Yeah, he's the Virginia player of the year. Yeah,
right. Yeah. Like
he said he had until the whole incident. I saw a video. He said before that the thing happened where he was in high
Charlie
school.
Ward.
He had every offer. Yeah. He had Allen Iverson had every offer in the country. He said, for football and basketball, he could have went anywhere he wanted. Then that little incident happened, and then but he was up in the air. He actually played football first. His mother convinced him to play basketball. So
Terrell Owens was a big basketball guy, right? I mean, look, I just think,
those three all translate. It's speed, size.
For me, I will always push guys to do as many sports as possible. I just think, anything, all that other stuff, that's whatever. But I still want you to go out there and do something where you're competing. I just think you get so much more from being on a team, competing, than you would if you go to a trainer who's making you run around cones for an hour and a half every day. It's just that's just like, for me, it's great content. I love it. You're good.
Yeah,
that's awesome
content.
that you could tweet this or post this. You got a great TikTok video, looks great, but when you put pads on and you're competing, there's a different level of we're dialed in here. So I just always think multi-sport, go play another game. You're working stuff without even knowing you're working stuff. And I just think that's been, a better way to do it. But that's just me. And I'll preach that forever.
Coach, tell us where you're going to be, because you're going to be speaking. Tell us where you're going to be and where they can find you on I see a ton of your stuff on TikTok, but where they can find you, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I have a son that's a content person, so I don't know my password to Instagram or TikTok, but I'm all over it because I send him shit and he puts it out there.
He's pretty good at it, by the way. So
he's really good at it. He quit his corporate job, and
that's awesome.
Just a plug. He and his brothers have a thing called the Cichlid Bros. So if you love aquarium fish, these people are like rock stars of the world with aquarium fish now. So anyway, those are my three sons. But so I'm all over YouTube, TikTok, Insta, and I am personally the owner of all my Twitter content.
I love that, Coach. That's great. That's good to hear, because you hear things about all these guys that don't do their own shit, and it's
And then the stuff my son puts out is always my stuff that he packages. He just does the editing of a video or something and puts it out there, and it allows me to continue to coach, which I love. But where I'm speaking next week is at Argyle, Texas, at Liberty Christian High School. It's where Jason Witten, the Cowboy guy, he's the head coach there.
He's been there for a couple of years now, right? He's won a little bit too, I think.
And sprint-based football, we had 8 sprint-based football teams win state championships this year.
That's awesome.
And basically what that is, they're not conditioning. They're prioritizing speed. They're big on shorter practices, make practice the best part of a kid's day, build your program on rest, recovery, and sleep.
Love that.
Be the fastest, most joyful team on Friday night you can possibly be, and you'll be tougher than hell. So me and Brad Dixon will both speak 3 times. Kurt Hester had to back out, but I believe we have Zach DeChant, who is fabulous from TCU, joining us. Tony Villani will be there, and then David Neal, the S&C guy at Argyle. So it'll be like a Friday. It'll be next week. So that's like the 6th and the 7th and the 8th of June.
Yes.
And
6th is the Thursday.
Okay, so
Friday would be the 7th.
It'll be 3 sessions Friday night, 3 sessions Saturday morning, 3 sessions in the afternoon, and it will be recorded, and everybody that buys a ticket will get all free recordings, and it'll be a great thing, and it's exciting because I do believe I'm making the lives of kids better, and I do believe I'm making the lives of coaches better. And as you know, coaches are dropping like flies. You just can't coach them very long.
Crazy. It's a brutal world we're living in.
A brutal world. And if we can bring a little love and light to the game, that will be a competitive advantage for you. It's not a hard sell. And then the only other gig I have is on July 6th. I'm in Limerick, Ireland. It'll be
Woo!
Yeah. I'm taking Feed the Cats Ireland. I was in France last December for a week working with the Soccer Federation. It'll be like my 5th gig overseas, and once again, like these ideas are not just track and field or football ideas.
No,
this is stuff
Coach,
that
we should speak, because my cousin is actually he's about to get ready. He's been preparing. This will be his 2nd Olympics for Ireland. He's a pommel horse guy.
Nice.
So Reese is Reese McClanahan. He's ready to go. And he's dialed up. So yeah, that might be something we need to talk about that a little bit.
Love that.
Right, because you need the speed to be able to spring off. And
dude, he's a freak of nature, brother. Like,
and you gotta love what you're doing, and you gotta build it on rest, recovery, and sleep. And if you love what you're doing, you'll start eating better and sleeping better.
It'll all just flow.
I think so.
It just goes, right? Like, because now you're so into it and so focused that, what else can I do?
Yes.
Or how else can this help me in this process?
And I don't know about you guys, but I think the grind that I went through in the 70s and 80s caused a hell of a lot of drinking.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, you see,
what I mean?
Coaches, college coaches, that's one of the biggest issues.
Listen, we'll talk about it. Look, I'm very open about it. I've had my issues and I've done my you know what I mean? Like, and a lot of that pressure and all that other kind of stuff, the just sheer like this is miserable type of stuff, forces a lot of guys to do shit that they normally wouldn't do.
I totally, yeah. If you're not a happy human, you can say, Coach, I love this, but it's just a Stockholm syndrome where you sort of love your captor a little bit.
Yep.
And we know what to say to our coaches. We would never say coaches sucks, because then we wouldn't get a play. So we constantly are lying to ourselves, lying to our coach, and then people drink themselves to sleep at night, and then they wake up the next day to go to practice. And I see that. I think if people understood the amount of drinking that goes on in college and high school football players, it would shock them. And I think a lot of it's the misery and abuse and grind
100%
that they're going through.
I agree. Coach, this has been phenomenal. I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm glad we were able to connect. I got to thank your son. He was all over it. As I said, sometimes when you write somebody, you don't know if they look at it or not. He was all over it. He got everything set up. And I can't thank you enough for coming on. Listen, I'm a disciple. I absorb all your content and really enjoy it and learn a lot from it. So I can't thank you enough.
Let's talk again someday.
Yeah, Coach, appreciate it. Have a good week and enjoy your talk.
Thank you.
Have a great day, Coach.
Bye-bye.
That was phenomenal. Phenomenal.
So good.
I mean,
I just think, look, whenever we can present something that's, different, and then obviously that we kind of endorse or like
I
appreciate it.
100.
I just think that's a whole different, you know what I mean? And there's no doubt to me that, you know, if Mike watches this or something, that he wouldn't be all over it in
Mike's
terms
all
of
over it.
like, you know what I mean? So anybody that's really trying to like take it
You
to
know,
that
you know
next
who I'd like
level
to get
or
on
do
with,
it.
Tony? You know, I'd like to, you know, let's write this down, because this would be a great, like, I got to figure out how we would do this with our StreamYard. But if we got Mike and
Right.
DJ Nymphius, both
Oh,
track guys and football coaches, right?
Oh, I think DJ with
Yeah.
would be all over it.
Yeah, well, DJ will jump on for whatever, and Mike just got to figure out what his time schedule is.
Right.
But I think he would be all over it. It would be great, and I'm sure DJ would probably, because DJ has those. What does he have? Those little forums where he's in the morning where he has the.
Yeah, he has like 7 a.m. like like whatever.
He probably have Tony on to speak about that kind of stuff too, because
yeah,
I know he brought Tony DeMeo, I think, on to one of his
right.
So
yeah, because he was all about that once we had him on, you know, and Tony had his connection issues, but DJ wanted to be all over. He's like, look, I could do this. I need to do this again.
I think that would be great if we were able to get DJ, Mike, and
I'll tell you what was awesome when he was talking about the miles per hour stuff. Like, I think that's awesome. Like, you know, like I wrote, like, it's just a, you know,
and even me being the tracker, I really didn't
so
understand
different.
it. Like, you know, like you see all those posts, right?
Yeah, but now you have the calculation, right?
It,
like now all you have to do is take you take the 40 time and you just divide it by, what was that number he was saying? 20.45, and then there's your miles per hour.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I just think that, you know, because you're constantly seeing that now, right? Like every announcement, ESPN, Sports Center, highlights, Tariq hit 25 on this run. Like, well, I don't know what the hell that means. You know, how do I figure out how fast I'm running? Like, all right, now you know, like, hey, you know, that's why these guys, like these colleges have these guys wearing that stuff during practice to see like how much their output is and all that other kind of stuff, you know? So
that's the start of it, the recovery. I think they're starting to realize that that's how
the recovery aspect, and I love that he preached that rest, recovery, sleep, like pivotal. You can't freaking work people or kids into the ground where they're getting exhausted. They're not gonna work for it. Just fatigue makes cowards of us all, right? Like if you're shot, you're gonna be shot. You're not giving it out. You only get a certain amount of opportune time to give everything, and you only have to do it once or twice, and that's it. Then you go rest, recovery.
One of the beliefs I've kind of formed just coaching now, obviously from doing all these high level guys and now doing young kids. What I've realized is that it's not that kids don't leave sports because they don't like that sport. That sport has drained them, right?
Yeah.
And that sport has drained them, and they leave the sport that they actually originally loved
it
because it drained them, and probably the coaches and the atmosphere. And I've had this conversation with like parents on, like, you know, when they want to join all-star teams, I'm like, you have to know what you're doing. Like, you have to understand what's going on there, because if your kid doesn't enjoy it, don't do it. It's just not. It's just because this team is a higher level does not mean it's going to be enjoyable, right?
It's just not worth it.
I saw a basketball coach, basketball. No, it was, oh God, I can't remember who it was. It was a guy playing the pros. He made a really interesting point, and I thought it was really good. And they're like, well, should he be on the baseball? It was baseball guy. He said, should your kid be on the best baseball team he can, or should he play on a team that's not as good and be able to maybe get more playing time or more attention? And the former MLB player said 100% he should play on the team where he's going to get more opportunity and more reps. Who cares how good the team is? Okay. Now, yes, it's nice when a team wins.
Of course, that's a perfect world.
But at the young age, he's like, the opportunity to play and compete and learn is the most important thing.
Absolutely.
Versus oh, we won a championship,
Winning.
but I have to sit there. You
Right.
know,
Like, hey, guess what? I scored 2 points in the championship game, and we won the 7th grade whatever championship. Like,
it's ultimately it's about development, right? So that's ultimately
everything.
But anyway, let's jump off. Great podcast. Let's get us out
That
of
was
here,
awesome.
and we'll go to next week.